Lilian sat quietly on the old wooden bench in the garden, her small fingers running over the rough piano keys. She couldn't see the garden, but she could feel it, the soft air, the way the leaves rustled above her head. This was her favorite place, the only place where she felt safe. Inside the house, her younger sister, Cynthia, laughed loudly. Cynthia always laughed like that. She wore shiny dresses, pretty shoes, and had new things every week. She always got princess treatment. But Lilian was seen as the black sheep of the family, like a burden. Because she was born blind, they treated her like an outcast in the house she was supposed to call home. They just gave her chores, washing plates, sweeping floors, fetching water even though she was blind. Be useful for once, Madame Maureen would shout. At least Cynthia is beautiful and smart. You're just there. Lilian didn't cry anymore when they said those things. She had learned that crying wouldn't solve anything, it only made her mother angrier. She would only press her hand against her chest and play her piano softly until the pain melted away a little. One afternoon, as Lilian sat at the piano, she heard her father, Mr. Thomas, and her mom, Maureen, talking near the kitchen. They didn't know she was there. She's useless to us, Aunt Maureen said harshly. Always bumping into things. Bringing shame to us. I know, Mr. Thomas answered. But listen, I found a way. I spoke to Micheal Ukena. He's rich. He's willing to marry her. He'll pay me 20 million. Micheal is a multimillionaire. I have discussed with him, and he has accepted to take her and pay us. Lilian's fingers froze on the keys. Sell her. Like a goat at the market. She's blind, Maureen hissed. Why would he want her? Mr. Thomas laughed. I don't know, and I don't care. As long as we get the money. She'll be gone. Out of our lives. Cynthia can finally have everything she deserves without that girl in the way. Lilian sat very still. The wind blew against her face, but she didn't move. She felt like the ground had opened under her and she was falling into a dark hole. Her father, Mr. Thomas, who used to tell her bedtime stories at her tender age, the only one who stood by her, was selling her now. Just like that. The next morning, Mrs. Maureen came into the small room where Lilian slept. Get up, she snapped. Big day for you. Lilian sat up slowly, her heart pounding. She wished she could disappear. She wanted to ask her if they were really her real parents. Maybe she was an orphan. Maybe, if they were her real parents, they wouldn't have given her away. Later that day, a box arrived. Cynthia squealed with excitement as she tore open her own gifts, a sparkling pink dress and golden sandals. This is for you, Mrs. Maureen said, tossing another box carelessly onto Lilian's lap. Inside was a long silky dress. It smelled of perfume and wealth. It wasn't a gift. It was a costume. Lilian understood, they wanted her to look pretty enough to sell. That evening, she sat at her piano again. She touched the keys, but no music came out. Only silence. Heavy, thick silence. The sun was setting. She could feel it through her skin. Another day was ending, and soon, she would not belong to herself anymore. A tear rolled down her cheek. She wiped it away quickly. No one must see. No one must hear. Lilian pressed her hand against her chest and whispered, even if they don't want me, I will still want myself. Then she closed the piano and went inside. Tomorrow, her life would no longer be hers. The next day came too fast. Lilian sat still as Mrs. Maureen pulled and tugged at her hair, twisting it into something neat. Don't mess up the dress, she snapped. Do you know how lucky you are? Lucky. Lilian didn't feel lucky at all. She was being given away to a man she had never met. After dressing her in the long silky gown, they pushed her toward a car. The seat was soft under her, but Lilian's stomach hurt. She wanted to cry, but she bit her lip hard. She had promised herself she would not cry today. The car drove for a long time. When it stopped, she heard music, laughter, and the sound of the sea. Someone guided her out. The ground beneath her feet shifted and rocked. She realized she was on a ship, a very big ship. Voices filled the air. Lilian heard people whispering, "Is that her? Poor thing. She can't even see the decorations. But I heard she's marrying a very rich man." Imagine that. Their voices stung like small cuts. Cynthia's laughter rang out somewhere close. Lilian could imagine her sister twirling around in a fancy dress, being admired by everyone. Meanwhile, Lilian stood awkwardly, her hands clenched at her sides, waiting. Finally, Micheal came and gently took her hand. His touch was strong but cold. This was the man she would marry. A man she did not know. A man who had bought her. The wedding began. Someone spoke words she didn't really hear, something about love, something about forever. Lilian said, "I do." She wasn't concentrating, but she had no choice. She felt Micheal slip a ring onto her finger, heavy and cold, like a chain. Then he leaned down and kissed her hand. It was quick, polite, and distant. Everyone clapped. But Lilian only felt emptiness inside. She smiled, but it wasn't real. It was the kind of smile you wear when your heart is breaking and no one notices. Later, there was a big party on the ship. There was loud music, fancy food, and more laughter. Cynthia danced in a sparkling gown, laughing with a group of rich teenagers. Aunt Maureen showed off Cynthia like a shiny prize, while Lilian sat alone in a chair by the edge of the deck. She listened to the ocean waves crashing against the ship. She wished she could be one of those waves, free, wild, and unchained. A kind woman came and pressed a plate of food into her hands. "Eat, dear," she said softly. But Lilian couldn't eat. The food smelled good, but her throat was tight. She just sat there, feeling the wind in her hair, feeling the tears pressing behind her closed eyes. She was married now. But she didn't feel like a bride. She felt like a bird trapped in a golden cage. As the sun dipped into the ocean and the sky turned dark, Lilian made a quiet promise to herself. "One day, I will be more than what they see. One day, I will fly." She sat quietly, holding her plate, and listened to the ocean sing a song only she could hear. After the wedding, Micheal helped Lilian into a car. The seat was soft, and the car smelled like expensive leather and sweet perfume. The driver didn't say a word as they drove away from the ship and into the city. Lilian pressed her fingers against the cold window. She couldn't see the city lights flashing by, but she could feel the hum of the car, the soft music playing from the speakers, the way the world moved fast without waiting for her. Finally, the car stopped. Micheal got out first and helped her out gently. His hand was firm, but not warm. They stood in front of a huge house. It was bigger than anything Lilian could have imagined, tall white pillars, golden lights glowing from the windows, and gardens that smelled of roses and fresh-cut grass. But to Lilian, it felt cold. Big. Empty. When she stepped inside, she could hear the echo of her footsteps on the shiny floors. The house smelled clean and new, but there was no laughter. No music. Only silence. "This is your home now," Micheal said. He led her inside, his steps careful so she could follow without falling. He showed her a big room with a soft bed, soft carpets, and a closet full of beautiful clothes. "This is your room," Micheal said. "If you need anything, just ask." Lilian nodded silently. He left her alone. She sat on the bed, running her hands over the soft blanket. Everything here was expensive. Everything here was beautiful. But none of it felt real to her. She missed her old small bed, even with its lumpy mattress. She missed the worn piano keys under her fingers. She missed the sound of crickets at night. Here, there was only silence. Later, she found a piano tucked away in a small garden inside the house. It was bigger and shinier than the one she used to play, but when she placed her hands on it, she didn't feel anything. Her fingers hovered over the keys. She wanted to play. She wanted to pour all her sadness into the music. But no sound came. Her heart was too heavy. That night, as she lay on the big bed all alone, she pulled the blanket over her head and whispered into the darkness. "This is not my home. This is not my life." The room was silent. No one heard her. And deep inside, Lilian knew. She was not free. She had simply been moved from one cage to another. The following morning, Micheal came in early. He said quietly, "There's a bathroom down the hall. You can take a bath if you want." He led her to the bathroom. It smelled like flowers and soap. Micheal stepped into another bathroom. Lilian, thinking that he had left, carefully unzipped her dress and let it fall to the floor. The silky fabric whispered against her skin as it dropped. She stood there for a moment, feeling the cool air against her bare skin. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel dirty or ugly. She just felt real. But what Lilian didn't know was that Micheal, who had gone to show her the way, had turned back for a moment. He stood frozen by the door, staring without meaning to. He saw her, not the blind girl everyone whispered about. He saw her beauty, her scars, her quiet strength. He quickly turned away, his heart beating strangely fast. He shut the door gently and leaned against the wall outside. He had bought her. But now, looking at her, he realized. He didn't own her at all. Inside the bathroom, Lilian hummed softly to herself. The water splashed as she stepped into the tub. Warmth surrounded her, washing away the dust of the long, hard days. For a moment, she let herself dream. What if I had a real home? What if someone saw me, and didn't just see a blind girl? Outside the door, Micheal pressed his hand over his face. He didn't understand what was happening to him. He had made a simple deal for a simple girl. But Lilian wasn't simple. She was something more. And without knowing it, Lilian had started to change everything around her. Not with shouting. Not with anger. But with the quiet power of being exactly who she was. When Lilian came out later, dressed in soft clean clothes, Micheal didn't say a word. He only watched her carefully, almost afraid to break the silence between them. Lilian felt the tension in the air, but she stayed silent too. She didn't trust him. Not yet. Maybe not ever. That night, as Lilian sat at the new piano again, her fingers finally found a song. It was a sad, slow tune, full of the things she couldn't say out loud. Micheal stood in the shadows, listening. Something inside him cracked a little more with every note. And for the first time, he wondered. Had he made a mistake? After that encounter, everything changed. It was small at first, like the way a breeze changes before a storm. Micheal started to stay home more. He would be watching quietly from his room while Lilian played the piano in the garden. Sometimes he would leave small gifts near her door, a warm scarf, a book written in braille, a soft blanket. He never said anything about them. Lilian noticed, but she didn't trust it. She had learned the hard way that kindness could disappear fast. She remembered her father Thomas, who smiled while selling her. She remembered her mother, who called her useless even while dressing her for a wedding. So Lilian stayed careful, polite, distant. She played her piano every evening, pouring her heart into the music. The songs spoke of sadness, hope, and tiny dreams that refused to die. It was the only way she knew how to breathe inside this golden cage. Meanwhile, Cynthia posted pictures from the Equine house, new dresses, birthday parties, expensive trips. Cynthia smiled in every photo like the world belonged to her. And Lilian? She stayed hidden, like a shadow no one wanted to see. One evening, Micheal asked, "Would you like me to walk you around the garden?" Lilian hesitated. She wanted to feel the grass under her feet, to smell the roses. But she was afraid. Afraid of wanting too much. Still, she nodded. He offered his arm, and carefully, she placed her hand on it. Together, they walked slowly through the garden. The night air was cool and smelled sweet. Lilian could hear the crickets singing, the soft splashes of a fountain nearby. For a little while, they didn't speak. They just walked. It felt strange but peaceful. Micheal glanced at her as they walked. He saw not a blind girl, not a burden, but a brave young woman who had survived so much without ever asking for pity. He didn't know how to say it. He didn't even know if he could. But deep inside, Micheal knew. He didn't want her to be afraid of him. That night, after Lilian went to her room, Micheal stood alone in the garden. The moonlight spilled over the grass, making everything glow. He clenched his fists. How do you earn the trust of someone you've hurt? He wondered. Inside her room, Lilian sat by her window. She played a slow, sad tune on a small music box Micheal had left her. She didn't know why he was changing. She didn't know if it would last. But deep inside her heart, a small flame flickered. It was not hope. Not yet. It was something smaller. A question. Maybe, things can be different. As days passed, the house grew softer. Micheal spoke more kindly. He listened when Lilian played. He even sat near her sometimes, just to hear her play. But Lilian's heart stayed careful. She remembered too much. She remembered the day her family sold her. She remembered standing on a ship, marrying a stranger. She remembered sitting alone while Cynthia lived like a princess. Kindness could not erase those memories. One evening, Micheal sat across from Lilian in the garden while she played the piano. The sun was setting, casting golden light over the garden. "I know I brought you here in the wrong way," Micheal said. His voice was low and rough, like it hurt him to say it. "I cannot change the past. But I want to give you something now." Lilian sat very still. "What?" she asked softly. "Choice," he said. "You can stay, because you want to. Or you can leave. I will not stop you." For a long moment, Lilian said nothing. Her heart raced inside her chest. Freedom. A real choice. No one had ever offered her that before. She stood slowly, her fingers brushing the smooth surface of the piano. The same piano where she had played her sadness. The same piano where she had dreamed quietly of another life. She turned toward Micheal, even though she couldn't see his face. She lifted her chin high. "If you want me to stay," she said, her voice clear and steady, "you must earn it. Not with money. Not with gifts. With truth." Micheal was silent. Then he bowed his head once, like a man making a deep promise. "I promise I will do my best." Lilian smiled a small, real smile. She didn't know yet what the future would bring. Maybe she would stay. Maybe she would leave. But tonight, for the first time in her life, Lilian felt strong. She was not a thing to be sold. She was not a shadow hiding behind pretty walls. She was Lilian. And her heart belonged only to her. As the stars blinked into the night sky, she sat at the piano and played. The music was no longer sad. It was full of hope. Full of dreams. Full of her. And Micheal listened quietly, knowing he had just witnessed something rare and beautiful. A girl who had once been broken, rising into her own power.